So, when you think of a Christmas story, what do you think of off the top of your head? Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Home Alone, or maybe even something unheard of like Arthur Christmas? Because Arthur Christmas is such a good holiday film that you could just sit down and have some fun with the fam. But we're not talking about that today. Today I'm going to be talking about one of the worst Christmas shows to ever come out in recent times. And me and the boys, that being Speeds, formerly known as Speedy Dash 101, and John Inferno, formerly known as John's Edge, are going to be taking a deep dive into one of the worst Christmas shows that ever came out in recent history. So of course, let me begin. So to start off, I'm going to address two core aspects about the show which make it so horrible. To start off, I'm going to be addressing the writing, and for another thing, I'm going to be talking about why this show in particular is just way too fucking cynical to be something related to Christmas. So of course, let us start off with the writing. So if I were going to describe the writing in one of the most basic ways possible, I'd say it's like what happens when you let a bunch of middle schoolers which just discovered how to curse into the room and then just let them run wild. Because that's just how bad the dialogue and the jokes are. Because let me tell you, I feel like it's one thing when you're a quote-unquote adult comedy and you can properly handle those themes and the way about how certain characters interact, but I feel like it's another thing when you name yourself a quote-unquote adult comedy but completely fail in every aspect. So of course, let me start off when it comes to the dialogue. The dialogue genuinely feels like garbage, and by the time that I was done with the first episode, I kind of got what I was clearly going to get for the rest of this show. At least until episode 6, because let me tell you, the way about how all these characters talk is just so fucking unrealistic. And here's the thing, you know, I get it that people curse, you know, because hey, it's a thing that mostly everyone does, but it's another thing when someone curses like a fucking sailor and has to do it for every other second, you know. And here's the thing, when people curse in real life, sure, cursing could be funny or it could be intimidating in a certain context, but when people do it 24/7, no one wants to listen to that. Not for 24 minutes, which is the span of an average episode, and not for 8 episodes, which is basically this entire season. And then on top of that, there's this weird abundance of dick jokes and sex jokes which are in there, and which I just have to say, once again, it's another thing if it's one thing if you're in adult comedy that manages to do these things pretty well, but it's another thing when you're a quote-unquote adult comedy, and then you just spam that shit like how Johnny Test spams the Whiplash sound effect. Like, if you were to go and take a drinking game to see about how many times to make those jokes in particular, you probably end up with alcohol poisoning before you even get to the 4th episode, because it's just that fucking common, man. I'm just like, man, have you guys ever heard of something called nuance? Because that's something that your show heavily lacks. But because we're on the subject of nuance, how about I move on to why this show just feels way too fucking cynical for a Christmas story. So of course, let me continue. So when it comes to most Christmas stories, it's not a uncommon thing to have a main character writer be a complete loser or just a plain asshole that learns a lesson to become a better person. I'm like, for fuck's sake, one of the most popular Christmas stories is A Christmas Carol, to where a guy that's so cranky and just mean learns to become a better person after getting spooked by 3 ghosts. The fucking Cuphead show, for crying out loud, had the devil himself become Santa. Also, he could save Christmas and learn a lesson to become a better person. So why does Santa Inc. fail, you may ask? It's because it has no fucking nuance, and because the writers didn't even try. Throughout this entire show, you're shown that most of the characters throughout the show are just plain assholes, and that when it comes to Candy, which preaches about trying to be a better person for the sake of everyone else and for the sake of changing, she's just a complete hypocrite. Like, if I were to come up with an analogy, it'd be like if someone were trying to talk about being a better person and world peace this and world peace that, but if that very same person was a terrorist that committed some of the worst crimes against humanity, was holding the president hostage, and still was trying to pander to everyone about trying to be a better person despite being a pretty horrible person already. I'm like, at that point, you might as well not even talk because you have nothing to say. And even when this show does have its one genuine moment to where it tries to do some Monsters in University type thing where it's like, oh yeah man, sometimes we can't always get what we want, but we can try to be better people.
Something I could learn.
Not true. When it comes to kids, you either have it or you don't.
Oh.
But you're right. You do know how to get shit done better than anyone. And Devin isn't anywhere near ready to be Santa, and that's why you're going to guide him Devin will be the fun and jolly face of the company, but you will be doing the real work behind the scenes, making sure Santa Inc. runs perfectly. And you'll be able to make all your great new innovations come true.
Yeah, behind the scenes.
Don't let your ego get in the way, okay? It doesn't matter who actually wears the red suit. You and Devin will both have the jobs you were meant to do, but Santa Inc. will be a better place because of you. This wasn't an easy decision, but it's right and it's final. Do you understand?
Go fuck yourself.
The show just says fuck you and decides to go spin your face and tried to make Candy a victim, despite her throughout the show being so shitty that she pushes not only her friends, but her own family away. I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to sympathize with a character that has no redeeming factors whatsoever? And if you're wondering, yes, I dropped this show at the same second that episode ended, which was episode 6, because I'm just like, at what point do I continue watching episode 7 and 8, because at that point, it's just way too late, you know? Like, Candy evolved as a character in the wrong way, man. Like, I was thinking, okay, maybe she learned a lesson in humility, but no, she goes from being a person to just being one of the worst fucking people which could possibly be Santa. But you know what, that's all I had to say for my segment, and now on to my homie Speeds. Good luck, buddy, with this dumpster fire.
Thank you, Lone Wolf, for letting me be on here. So now I'll take it from here. Since I'm sure you're all aware that Santa Inc. is garbage in its purest form, I'm going to be taking my stance and my own personal view of the show in continuation from what Lone Wolf said. So that said, let me begin. To start, the plot itself just isn't well made and it isn't very subtle. All of the 8 episodes go on about identity crisis and political relations to that, which drives the show to lose any entertaining value and make it seem like a political lecture in a very unhumored way. It hardly tells a story when all it is a bunch of political and woke bull, and not only that, but it's incredibly unfunny. I feel like you could most certainly create a Christmas story for a show with a conflict that focuses on some sort of discrimination, essentially like Rudolph, and have a plot like Candy being poked fun of for trying to be the next Santa Claus while focusing more on her being an elf rather than just a woman. The political side of this show, which is almost its entirety, is incredibly unnecessary and it really makes each episode more and more uninteresting. Next up, as if politics in this show didn't make up a good portion of each episode, this show is filled to the brim with absolutely horrendous, terrible, and god-awful comedy. Now, it's one thing if you make a show that has characters swearing from time to time, and that's fine, because I'm not saying, ugh, swearing bad, but it's another thing when you have characters swearing like sailors each minute in the episodes, it seems, to the point it's also incredibly unwanted and very unfunny.
Well, go there, bitch, right now. You gotta get intimate with that jolly bitch.
Okay, I know you're right, but do you really have to call me bitch every time you say something?
Yes, bitch, because it's empowering to call you bitch.
I guess it isn't so different from Sausage Party, and I say that since the creators of Sausage Party were involved with this show in the sense that they believe kid-friendly looking characters swearing every 10 seconds is Comedy 1000. The humor in this show is so stale, and not in an outdated sense, but in a way that it's just not hilarious and not something you can genuinely laugh at, and if you had to laugh, you'd have to full force yourself just to get even a single ha. The narrative of it is like, look, we made joke, it's very funny, please laugh, and has the writing equivalent of a kid who just hit puberty with middle school cussing privileges that tried to click with current media. That, or the equivalent of someone at a comedy show making very unfunny jokes with some potential cussing thrown in the middle in an attempt to get the crowd going. Anyways, enough of that said, a prime example of this is Candy herself being incredibly annoying as she's made to be in the show, but attempts at saying something funny or trying to do something funny.
After tonight, I insist that you go to a hotel room and trash it.
I will do it. I will drug groupies. I will shit on the bed. I will fuck a baby shark and bite its head off. Woo!
And not only this, but the creators thought it was high-level hilarious that one joke needed to be repeated.
Oh, if I die, get rid of my porn!
Yeah, I know. I'm sure you're all rolling on the ground crying for mercy just as much as I am right now. I also want to mention, as if the other clip couldn't already make it somewhat obvious, this show contains an odd amount of sexual jokes and themes at certain points for some reason, which I suppose isn't out of the question completely to add to an adult comedy as something that may happen from time to time, but instead you're this kind of show that just takes it far enough to the level of joke spam. That said, that's what I have to say regarding the show's unfunny, questionable, and very horrendous humor. Lastly, the other characters in this show just genuinely suck Well, as characters. The show tries to amp up the misogyny levels of other characters so much so that it just becomes incredibly bad. Although the show makes large effort to show why the actions are bad, most times the characters end up doing said actions anyway for, in quotations, laughing matter. Essentially, the show contradicts itself by trying to make a message that the actions the characters do is bad, but will do it anyway just to try to get the viewer to laugh. That's basically it. Some examples include the scene with Candy and the weird guy at the bar, and the scene with Goldie and Devin, because sexual harassment is funny, I guess. Oh yeah, and let's not talk about the relationship between Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus. Don't really know what's up with that. There's various other examples that I could name, but I feel like those few are enough to list. This show just has to be that nonsensical, I guess. But anyways, that's all the opinion I have left to give for my part here, and I have my own version on my channel. Now, on to you, Jono.
Thank you, SpeedZ, for having me on here. Hello everyone, my name is Jono Inferno. I hope all of you are staying infernal this winter. I know I am. If there's anything I absolutely love in this world, it's Christmas and roasting dumpster fires when I see them. As I'm sure you can tell by now, Santa Inc. is a complete train wreck of a series. Hell, it literally lasted for only one season with a whopping 8 episodes in total. So I'm not gonna beat around the bush and I'm just gonna address the elephant in the room. The show tries way too hard to be funny. This is especially evident with the elf character who tries to become the successor of Santa throughout the course of the show by the name of Candy Smalls, who ends up failing in the end as one would expect. And since most women generally suck at comedy, this is kind of a given. Whether it be talking about shitting on beds on some Amber Heard type shit, or fucking a baby shark and biting its head off. You are a fucking rock star! After tonight, I insist that you go to a hotel room and trash it.
I will do it. I will drug groupies. I will shit on the bed. I will fuck a baby shark and bite its head off. Woo!
Candy's just not very funny, and her attempts at comedy honestly come off as very unfunny and low-key annoying to listen to at times. Almost like she's trying a little too hard to be funny. This doesn't just apply to the character of Candy Smalls either, because this entire show is filled to the brim with adult humor. The kind of adult humor that I could only ever imagine being scripted by a terminally horny 12-year-old boy who just got hit by puberty like a truck. Adult humor can be funny if it's executed well, but this show relies far too much on said humor to the point where if you were to take a shot every time a sexual joke was made, you would die of alcohol poisoning. And don't even get me started on the unnecessary woke political bullshit that plagues this show either.
Santa Inc. is a diverse place. Humans and magical creatures of all races and religions living together. But the position of Santa has mostly been a white man's game. There have been women prime ministers, women presidents, even a woman mechanic. But there has never, ever been a woman Santa Claus.
No idea sucks.
Well, I just think now moles will be safe, but won't sloths be terrorized? Maybe the Wackid should be something that deserves it, like whack a white supremacist.
Now what about our own Timmy? All he ever talks about is toys. I had no idea he was a history buff too, until I saw his gift to Santa. It blew me away in about 6 million different ways.
I can't!
My body, my choice.
How awesome would I be to have chosen the first black successor and then the first woman successor?
You know how firsts of any kind turn me on.
Candy's a Jew, too. She checks off 2 boxes, woman and Jew. Holy shit. Holy shit. A woman and a Jew? I'll go from historic to like fucking legendary.
I'm pretty sure she already exists. Her name is Mrs. Claus, the wife of Santa Claus. And last I checked, Jews don't even celebrate Christmas. Oh yeah, and Santa's evil because white man bad. Nothing like casual racism. Am I white? Aha, aha, see what I did there? And just when I thought the show was bad enough as it is, the voice of Santa, Seth Rogen, responded to the show's backlash publicly on Twitter in the most cringy way possible. We really pissed off tens of thousands of white supremacists with our new show Santa Inc., which is now available on HBO Max. Please read the responses to this tweet for confirmation. Oh really now? So I, a person of color, am apparently a white supremacist for rightfully thinking that this show is abysmal, even though that's a huge understatement, but you get my point. I'm not even wrong for saying that, it's just a fact. This show is bad. If your only response to all of the criticism this show has received is, "Ooga booga, you're all white supremacist assholes," that's how even you know that the show that you voiced one of the major characters in really sucks ass. I honestly can't believe that this is the same guy who's voicing Donkey Kong in the upcoming Super Mario Bros. Movie. What a joke. So that's all I have to say about Santa Inc. Everything about this show reeks of pure cringe, and it is without a shadow of a doubt the worst Christmas series I have ever watched. Once again, thank you Speedsy for having me on this year's Speedsy Miss to give my opinions on Santa Inc.
So that was Santa Inc., ladies and gentlemen. Probably one of the worst Christmas shows to come out in recent times. Thanks a lot to John Inferno and Speeds for helping me out with this big project of mine. Links to their channels will rather be down in the description or in the comment section with like a pinned comment. And yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Have a good holiday, enjoy yourselves, and later folks.